Hare Krishna. This story is very, very special in the sense that this is a story about good people and bad people. And this is a story that really brings you perspectives how to see good and bad. So, when I'm talking about good and bad, I'm talking about good people and bad people. When I'm talking about Daityas and Devatas, remember that I'm talking about ourselves. There is a good person in me and there's a bad person in me. So when I'm specifically saying, these people are good or these people are bad, or sometimes the good people act bad and the bad people act good, don't worry. We're not talking about anybody else. We're talking about ourselves, right? So this story has to be seen from our perspective, and this story has to be seen from a very internal point of view. So when we are discussing how sabotage is happening, how people are plotting against each other, how people are pulling each other down, how people are really messing around with each other's lives, don't worry. Don't think so much about the externals. You can't say, "Arey, ye bhi aisa kar rahe, wo bhi aisa kar rahe." Aisa nahi. It's all about us, right? So through this story, we're going to deal with our own lives and the way we see good and bad, right? So to begin this story, I'll tell you all another very interesting story which builds the context of this story. If you have already noticed by now, I'm flooding you all with so many stories basically here. And I feel that's the best way to study scriptures. That's the best way to study anything in life, through stories. So I like to primarily call myself a storyteller. I just tell stories, that's all. And while I tell stories, people learn some things, that's fine. So there was a man who was very hungry, very desperate. He was so hungry at some point that he decided to steal in somebody's property. So he jumped over a fence and tried to steal, but somehow he got caught and he was running away. He ran into the jungles. And while he ran into the jungles, he just fell down and he was stuck in one particular place. He observed something very interesting. He observed that there was a fox over there. And the interesting thing about this fox was, it was not an ordinary fox. It was a fox that had only 2 legs. Just imagine if there's a fox that only has 2 legs, how it will walk. So it was really struggling and somehow they're hobbling around, trying to, not hardly able to walk. But the more interesting thing was, after some time, this man observed that a lion came that side. And the lion got a piece of meat in its mouth and threw it in front of the fox and walked away. So this man was really impressed. He said, "Wow, how great God is. God is making a lion get food for a fox. If God can give fox food, why can't he give me food? I should just have faith in God and maybe he will arrange food for me also." This guy, he decided to have faith in God. He stopped eating. He stopped looking for food. He said, one day somebody will come and give me food, basically. He was lying over there. 2 days passed, 3 days passed. Nobody's coming giving him anything, After 4 days, once, saintly person was passing by that side. And he saw this guy dying literally. He asked him, "What happened?" So he said, "I was waiting for food. I thought God will send. God didn't send only, And he said, first he said, come to the ashram, let's discuss later. Took him to the ashram, fed him nicely. Then after that he asked him, "Tell me your story." Then this guy said, I saw this fox and I saw this lion. Fox went out of the way to get food for the lion. Lion went out of the way to get food for the fox. So I thought God will help me also, but he didn't help. 3 days I waited. The sage looked at this man and he told him, "Why didn't you decide to learn from the lion? Why did you have to learn from the fox how to live life? Why didn't you learn from the lion? Maybe God wanted you to learn from the lion. They were to get food for others." Most people like the easy way out. Most people want good to happen to them. Most people want God to supply them things. Most people want everybody to help them. What about they deciding to help others? What about they being the instrument of God and helping somebody else? So the moment the sage told this to this man, this guy realized, oh, I didn't think like that, Because most people don't think like that. They only think from their point of view. Nobody sees it from the other person's point of view. Today, we're going to see a story from two people's point of view. One from the point of view of the gods, the Devatas, who are in the heavenly planets and who are most powerful people in the world, who have a lot, who enjoy a lot, who are very pious and pure. And the other, we're going to see life from the point of view of the Daityas, the demons, the Rakshasas basically, who apparently are bad people. They keep stealing from others, they keep looting others. And then when you see life from both their points of view, you'll realize life is something else only. And that's what this session is going to be about. I will take you all straight into the storyline. This is the story of Shukracharya to begin with. Shukracharya is the guru of the Daityas, one of the most powerful sages in the history of the world. And the Daityas are what they are. The demons are what they are because of this one person, Shukracharya. He is like the backbone of the Daityas. He does all the planning. He is the mastermind. He is the source of all their power. If he was not there, they wouldn't exist. In fact, they are so dependent on him that without him, they can't do anything. There are some teachers who make their students completely dependent on them. Without them, the students can't do anything. He is one of those teachers. It's good to be a teacher like that, and it's also bad. The good part is that the students get everything they need. The guru supplies everything to them, But the bad part is that they tend to become over-dependent on the guru, on the teacher. And they don't get to grow on their own. They are so dependent. Even to pass urine, they would ask guru, can I go, Literally, that's the kind of, life most people live in the end, Intellectually, physically, emotionally, completely dependent on the teacher. Now, Shukracharya one day just disappeared from the life of the Daityas. And he went and joined the Devatas. Switched party. Congress, BJP, Congress, kya farak padta hai? Doesn't matter, Whoever is in power, I go there, basically. So the Daityas were very hurt. Because they used to so much dependence on him, and suddenly he disappeared, joined the other party. So the Daityas are wondering what the hell happened. So one day they found him and they confronted him. They asked him some seriously tough questions. They asked him, why did you do this to us? We have so much faith in you. It's so much dependence on you. Why did you let us down? So when the guru was asked this kind of questions, the disciples, of course, it was a very private meeting. Nobody else was there in that meeting. The guru only said 2 words. He said, trust me. He said, what I'm doing it for you. They said, how do we know it's for us? You are sitting in somebody else's camp. You are sitting with our enemies. You have become the guru of our enemies over there. You're telling, trust me. How do we trust you and why should we trust you? The guru explained that, he said, I've been living with your enemies only for one reason. He said, and it's not a small duration of time. It's been 10 Divya Yugas that he has been living with the enemies. He said, I know handling all this humiliation, subjugation is not easy for you. But let me tell you, what I have planned for you is millions of years of power and enjoyment. You sacrifice a few years today, now. You suffer a few years. But millions of years of enjoyment is waiting for you. As soon as the guru said that, these people felt relieved. He said, at least he has a plan to help us, basically. So Shukracharya, he said that the reason I am sitting over there is because I'm going to be disappearing for a prolonged duration of time for performing some tapasya. And this tapasya is going to make me get powers that are inconceivable. But for me to go on a break and do this tapasya, I want to ensure that there is peace over here while I'm away. So to ensure that y'all are in peace, your life is in peace, I went and joined the enemies to show them that you are powerless now. And once the enemies are convinced that you are powerless, they won't attack you only because they will think you are useless. You'll have no strength. So you can be peaceful. I can go and do my tapasya. And the devatas won't trouble you. This was Shukracharya's plan. Look at the problem. Instead of Shukracharya empowering these people to be able to handle their own thing, he is just telling them, just cool off. Stay aside. I am going and joining them. They will think without me you're useless, which is a fact also in one sense, So he said, in the meanwhile, I will go and acquire all those powers. Then we together will become most powerful. So the Daityas were very, very happy. And the Guru told them that, before I go away, and I want you to do one thing. I want all of you to go to the Devatas, keeping Prahlad Maharaj in the front. Prahlad is also the Daitya. He's one of the Rakshasas. But Prahlad is a great devotee also, So he said, keep Prahlad in the front and go and meet Indra. And tell Indra that you all have become peaceful. And tell Indra that you want to live a life of peace now and don't want to do anything wrong. So once you ensure that and keep Prahlad in the front, Indra will forgive you all for all the problems in the past, and he will not touch you all. So the Guru rose and he went away. So the Daityas were like super happy, they were excited that the Guru has a great plan for them. Millions of years of enjoyment, few years will sacrifice, no problem. Every Guru should have at least one person who can ask him tough questions. Usually what happens is, most people like to have yes men who don't ask any questions. While it is good to have yes men, it is better to have people who can ask tough questions. Unfortunately today, most leaders hate being asked tough questions. Because the reason they hate being asked tough questions is because those tough questions make you think. They force you to speak the truth. And unfortunately, truth is heavy. Truth is not easy to speak. So therefore, every person should have at least one person in his or her life who can ask tough questions. All of us also, not just big leaders. Even all of us need at least one person. See, we do a lot of things in life. But many times, we don't even know why we're doing what we're doing. A lot of times, we don't know what is our motive behind doing things in life. And unfortunately, we don't have the guts to ask ourselves tough questions. That's why you need at least one person in your life who can actually ask you tough questions. The nature of doubts is that it can come and attack anybody. That's the reality. Anybody can get doubts in life. In the Ramayana, the Yuddha Kand, where the war happens in Lanka, at a particular point during the war, Lord Ram gets tied up by what is known as a Nagapash. So Indrajit, he releases his Nagapash, which ties up Ram. Nagapash essentially is a snake rope, It's a snake which has become a rope that ties up Lord Ram. So then Narad Muni tells Garuda that you have to go and save Lord Ram from the Nagapash. Go and help him. So Garuda goes, and he releases Ram from the bondage of the Nagapash. And Ram is free from the Nagapash. So now, when Garuda releases Ram and he's coming back, suddenly he has a doubt in his mind. So the doubt that he has is, the holy name of God, the holy name of Ram, is supposed to release you from all bondage. But the person whose name is able to release you from all bondage, how he could not release himself from bondage? So Garuda had this doubt. So then this doubt became so intense in Garuda's mind, how if he's God, if he's chanting his name can release us from bondage, why he couldn't release himself from bondage? So Garuda kept thinking. Sometimes too much intelligence is a problem, especially in the path of devotion, If you don't have intelligence, half your problem is solved. Peaceful, you can practice, devotion with faith. But when you have too much intelligence, that's where problems begin, basically. Because intelligence, one of the symptoms of intelligence is doubts. So Garuda had this massive doubt now, he went to do seva, but he came back with a doubt. So he goes, he's just not able to get a satisfactory answer. So he keeps thinking, then finally he goes to Narad Muni. He tells Narad Muni, you only send me over there. Now since I've gone there, I went there to release Ram from a snake. But instead of releasing Ram from a snake, one snake bit me only. So usually snakes get scared of eagles. No snake bites an eagle. So Narad Muni is asking, how did a snake bite you? He said, this is not an ordinary snake. This is a snake of doubt. This snake has bit me, I released Ram from one snake, but one snake has bit me now. Now who's going to release me from this snake of doubt? So Narad Muni, so then he tells Narad Muni the problem, that I have this doubt that how Ram is not able to free himself if he is God. So when Narad Muni hears this problem, he says, see, I don't have a solution to this problem. You go to Lord Brahma, he will tell you. He's very intelligent, so he will tell you. So Garuda goes to Brahmaji and he asks him, my dear Brahma, I have this problem, how do we? Brahma says, I don't have answer to the solution, go to Lord Shiva, he will help you. So then, Garuda finally he goes to Lord Shiva. And Brahma, he sends him to Lord Shiva, and Shiva actually being the right person to help Garuda is very symbolic in this particular context. Because the problem here is Garuda is bitten by a snake, poison, basically. He is bitten by snake poison. And the only person who is free from problems of snake bite is Lord Shiva. Because he has so much poison, but the poison is not affecting him, basically. So a person who is not affected by snake poison can help somebody else who is not who is affected by snake poison. So, in fact, Lord Shiva is such a person that he makes snakes his ornaments. He doesn't have a golden necklace, he doesn't have a diamond necklace, he has snake as necklace, of all things. So, the snakes that usually kill people decorate Lord Shiva. So, what is the meaning of snakes decorating Lord Shiva? The idea of Lord Shiva being, not affected by the poison of doubts, by the snake poison, is a very important idea, because here, if you see, one sage asked Lord Shiva when he drank that poison, the halahal wish, and the poison became like a necklace, around his neck. One sage asked him, how did this happen? You drank poison, but it didn't affect you. How is it possible that when you drank poison, it's not affecting you? Lord Shiva gave a very interesting answer. He said, I always had Lord Ram's name in my throat. My throat has always been emanating, chanting the names of Ram. And then I added wish to it. Then it became Vishram. Became peaceful. So it became a jewel. It became something that really became something glorified to the world. So the idea here is for somebody to be able to answer questions based on doubts, first that person should not be affected by those doubts. So that person should not be affected by the doubts of such nature. Why did Narad Muni not answer the question of Garuda? Because time to time he also keeps getting doubts. There are so many stories where Narad Muni himself has doubts. And why did Brahma not answer the doubts of Garuda? Because time to time he also keeps getting doubts. Brahma Vimohan Leela, if you see, so many pastimes where he himself gets doubts. But so when you yourself are getting doubts, what will you answer somebody else's doubt? Therefore, they send him to Lord Shiva, because Lord Shiva is one person who has no doubts about the Lord's greatness, who has no doubts about the Lord's powers. And therefore, he is the one who is qualified to answer your doubts. So when you have doubts, it's great. But it's more important that you have somebody who actually is beyond doubts, who can answer your doubts. So if you, the nature of today's guru-disciple relationship is, disciple asks guru a question. The guru, he gets bigger doubts when the disciple asks him questions. And the guru and disciple having a discussion. Oh yeah, that's also right. Practically nobody has answers. If only you have questions and nobody has answers, what's the point, right? So in today's literary world, I keep traveling in all these literary festivals, people only have doubts. Nobody seems to be having answers, And the person who has answers, they keep asking more doubts based on that answer, So as a result, we only have doubts and we have no answers only, literally. That's where the problem is. And that's why we need somebody like Shiva, who has dealt with the poison of doubts. And dealt it in a very respectable and a very dignified way. So, what happens in the meanwhile is the Daityas, they ask, they go to, here the Guru has disappeared, Guru has gone for his tapasya basically. And the Daityas, they, as instructed by their Guru Shukracharya, go to Indra, keeping Prahlad in the front, and they tell Indra that, we have changed now. We are all changed people. Suddenly, we have gone through a transformation. We realize there's no point in doing all this violence business. We have decided to become nice people. So Indra was very happy. Brahaspati, the guru of the Devatas, he gave big lecture on why it is important to be nice. And these demons were like least bothered about that lecture. They somehow tolerated that lecture and they went away. Thinking that, chalo, at least get out of this. And then they went to the house of Bhrigu. So Bhrigu is the guru of Shukracharya. Guru's guru, basically. And in fact, Bhrigu is the father of Shukracharya also. Bhrigu and Khyati. So Shukracharya says, go and stay with Bhrigu and Khyati. You are safe over there. The demigods won't attack you there. So all the demons, Daityas, go and stay with Bhrigu and Khyati. In the meanwhile, what happens is, here the Devatas have told the Daityas, don't worry, you go and be peaceful, we'll also be peaceful. What the Devatas do is, they plan a surprise attack. And even before they know it, the Devatas attack Bhrigu's house and start destroying all the demons. And the demons, like a surprise attack, They have no idea, they're not even planned, they're not even ready for it. And suddenly all these Devatas are coming and hitting them, beating them, killing them. Big mess in the house. So Bhrigu Muni is not there at that point where the Devatas attack. He's gone out. And Khyati, who's the wife of Bhrigu, she's not an ordinary person. She's a very powerful person. Khyati begins to protect the Devatas, protect the Daityas. And because she's so powerful, she uses all her powers against the Devatas. So she freezes Indra. So Indra is frozen like ice. He can't move even his eyelids. He's frozen so badly. And Khyati was almost on the verge of, throwing a weapon at Indra and killing him literally. At that point, Lord Vishnu interferes. And Vishnu realizes, if he doesn't stop Khyati, all the gods will be dead. They'll be in big trouble. And the Daityas will take over. Lord Vishnu releases his Sudarshan Chakra and chops off the head of Khyati. Khyati is dead suddenly. The Devatas go mad, seeing their guru's mother dead, and they panic, they all run away here and there. In the meanwhile, Bhrigu comes exactly at that time when his wife is killed. Bhrigu sees his wife's head rolled off, and he sees Lord Vishnu is responsible for killing his wife. Bhrigu gets wild on Lord Vishnu. He says, how dare you kill my wife? He doesn't go and ask why he killed. He only gets angry that he killed. Bhrigu straight away curses Lord Vishnu. He says that just because you cursed me, you killed my wife, I curse you that you will take 7 birth on 7 times you will take birth on the earth planet. And he says during one of these 7 births, you will be separated from your wife just like I am separated from my wife. And this curse comes, that's the reason for the different incarnations of Lord Vishnu on the earth. And Ram Leela, when Sita gets banished, that's Bhrigu's curse coming into picture. Now, after Bhrigu curses Lord Vishnu, he actually chants a mantra, and the head of Khyati rolls back and joins the body. Khyati wakes up again. Curse kyun kiya? His wife is not dead only after all. She comes back to life, Unnecessarily cursed Vishnu over here. But the interesting part is, when Bhrigu is cursing Lord Vishnu smiles. This is one of the most amazing things in all the scriptures. If you actually see the Bhagavatam, if you see the narration of the Gita, there is a lot of description of the Lord smiles. And interestingly, the Lord is smiling in every situation of life. The Bhagavad Gita begins with Prahasan iva Bharata. It begins with Krishna smiling and Arjun crying. A crying Arjun and a smiling Krishna. Only a smiling Krishna can help a crying Arjun. The Srimad Bhagavatam begins with Lord Vishnu smiling. It's so many episodes. And especially when there is a chaos going on. Not just Vishnu. Father, Vasudeva. When Kamsa is going to kill his wife, Devaki, Kamsa is holding his Devaki's hair in one hand. He has a sword in his other hand. He's going to chop off Vasudeva's wife. And while Kamsa is in the process of chopping off Vasudeva's wife, Vasudeva is standing over there and smiling. You might wonder what the hell is going on. These people are crackpot, smiling at the wrong time. The idea is a very important idea. And specifically the Bhagavatam captures this idea all the time. You know why? Because it's very difficult to smile when you're in trouble. How great you are depends on the way you react when you're faced with provocations, with difficulties, with tough situations of life. Most people, when they are faced with tough situations in life, they crack. They crumble. They start crying, they break down. It's very difficult to stand there and smile. Very difficult to stand there and smile when you have just got cursed. It's very difficult to stand there and smile when just somebody has insulted you, when somebody has abused you, when somebody has hurt you, when somebody has, destroyed your life literally. Very difficult to smile. There was a man who used to travel in the deserts of Rajasthan. And this person was not an ordinary person. He was a very wise man. People used to consider him to be a great sage. So he would travel from village to village. Thousands of people would come to see him, talk to him, gain his advice and all that. One particular day, one man came up to this sage and he told him, I have a lot of problems in life. He said, I have health problems, I have family problems, I have money problems, I have this problem, I have that problem. So many problems he kept telling. The sage, and so he said, can you help me solve all my problems of life? Sage looked at him and he said, surely I'll help you tomorrow, but can you do me a small favor today? He said, yeah, of course, I'll do anything for you. This man said, I have my 100 camels. So now, can you take care of them tonight? And you have to do only one simple thing. Make all of them sit. And as soon as all of them sit, you go to sleep. No problem. What a big deal. He said, yeah, I can do it. Anything for you. So the sage went and he went to sleep. This man, he went and to the camels, the 100 camels, and he tried making them sit. Next day morning, the sage, he asked him, so how did you sleep? This fellow said, what sleep? I didn't sleep one wee bit. These camels, they're so stupid. One fellow sits, other fellow stands, And I make that fellow sit, the third fellow is standing. Then one fellow sits on his own, then after some time he gets up on his own. All night the only thing I've been doing is making one sit, and it's such a chaos. I could never, there was never a point where all the camels were sitting on one point. So I never slept. The sage told this fellow, problems are in life that we face are like these camels. We have many problems in life. And we will have many problems in life. Some problems stand up, some problems sit. Then some problems stand up on their own, and they go to sit on their own also. You try to make one problem sit, by the time another problem stands up. You try to make another problem sit, then third problem stands up. Then simultaneously 5 problems stand up, So the sage told him, the best process is stop trying to make any camel sit. Let them do what they want, You will be peaceful, they will be peaceful, A lot of time in life, we are in this intense process of solving our problems. Actually, nobody can solve any problem of life. In fact, the moment you think that you have solved the problem, that's the problem. The moment you think that you can solve any problem, that's where the problems begin, basically. The idea is to learn to smile when you're facing all these problems. Problems will come. It's a part of life. And every person has some problem or the other. The question is, when these problems come, how do you face them? That determines the quality of your life. So when we come across problems in life, we have to remember Lord Vishnu, smiling. If you see Radha Gopinath on top, our beautiful deity, always smiling. Whether there's tsunami going on, whether there's floods going on, whether India is winning, India is losing, whatever is happening, Gopinath is smiling, basically. That's our inspiration. The idea is somehow or the other, we need to learn to smile through whatever happens in our lives. So the Daityas, now they were in a big trouble. In the meanwhile, as this attack was going on here and all this chaos was going on here, Shukracharya was in another world only. He had gone to a planet known as the Yakshaloka, where the Yakshas were there. And there was so he was doing a very, very intense type of tapasya, very special type of tapasya, where the Yakshas created a smoke chamber for him. This chamber was filled with smoke constantly. And they created this chamber, closed chamber, filled with smoke. And Shukracharya was inside the smoke-filled chamber, standing on his head for thousands of years doing tapasya, not eating anything, not drinking anything, just standing on his head to please Lord Shiva. And after so many years of intense tapasya, finally Lord Shiva appeared in front of him. And Lord Shiva, granted him the boons that he wanted. And, Shukracharya was now much more powerful than what he was. While Lord Shiva left eventually, the sage got up and he was leaving. That's when he realized there is somebody else in that room, in that smoke-filled chamber. He saw there was a beautiful girl. This girl's name was Jayanti. This girl had been serving Shukracharya for so many years, massaging his body, just taking care of him, in so many ways. Shukracharya didn't even realize that she has been doing so much for him. Eventually, Shukracharya was naturally so grateful to her. And because he was so grateful to her, he told her, tell me what you want. And she told him, I want to marry you. Shukracharya got married to Jayanti, stayed with her for many years. The interesting part was, Jayanti was Indra's daughter. She was sent to purposely keep Shukracharya away from the demons, basically. So this was like a plot of the demigods. So there are different types of people that come into your life. There are some people who become invisible when you are in trouble. They become invisible during a crisis, and they are very visible when you are celebrating. When you are excited and having a celebration, these people come, suddenly they appear over there, And there are some people who become invisible during a celebrations and they become visible during a crisis. Each human being experiences these different types of people. The question is, which type of people do you attract in your life? Every person experiences challenges. Every person experiences fall downs. Every person experiences difficulties where one, collapses. Every time you fall down, you should always have somebody who can lift you up. These people are known as fallback options. When you fall, it's never a question whether you fall. The question is always when you fall. Because everyone will fall at some point or the other. When you fall, who is there to help you during your fall? There are two types of friends that come into your life. There are some friends, when you fall, they make you fall further from a fall. You're already fallen. They will tell you, "Arey, problem hai, come with me, take you to the bar, make you drink, You're already fallen, they'll make you fall further, That is the first type of friends. And there are some friends who can help you stand up from a fall. They know exactly what to say, how to say, and when to say. And when they encourage you, you feel like standing. You actually, really become strong. And such people are the best fallback options to go to. So Shukracharya now, he was, with Jayanti, and Jayanti wanted to spend a lot of time with him. So almost 10 years he spent with Jayanti, married, and he was in a different world basically. In the meanwhile, something very interesting happened over here. Suddenly one fine day, unannounced, Shukracharya enters into the camp of the Daityas. The Daityas are surprised. He says, our Guru has come in without informing, nothing. No WhatsApp message, no email, nothing. Straight landed, So these people are wondering, how the hell did Shukracharya come? But he's there, very much visible. So he tells them, I've come back, I'm powerful now. Now I want to share all my knowledge with you. This is the first time the Daityas heard this. Because Shukracharya never shares anything. He does what he needs to do for them, but he doesn't share knowledge with them. He has a lot of knowledge, but he doesn't share. So now when they heard that Shukracharya wants to share knowledge, they were excited. There was a classroom arranged, all the Daityas sitting over there. Shukracharya giving hours of lecture. And he's speaking about subjects that they have never heard before. He's speaking about compassion. He's speaking about kindness. He's speaking about empathy. He's speaking about how to be good. Their heads were spinning. This kind of knowledge is very new for them, They never heard this kind of knowledge in their life, And they loved it. So they kept hearing his lectures for hours and hours, every day, non-stop lectures going on. First time in Daitya Loka, lectures going on. Satsang program happening, Imagine, in Daitya Loka, Satsang program happens, what is going to happen over there? So the Daityas were like totally in a different world. The quality of your transformation is directly proportional to the quality of information that you consume. Everyone is open to learning. But becoming a Daitya or becoming a Devata depends on what is taught. So it's not that Daitya is always bad. The same people who are taught the right kind of knowledge, they are open to becoming good, basically. There's a very interesting feature about sunflowers. It is said the sunflowers usually gain, they face the direction of the sun. That's why they call sunflowers. So you always find sunflowers facing the sun, because that's where they gain their energy from, that's where they gain their strength from. But interestingly, whenever there are cloudy days, when the sun is not visible at all, most people feel that the sunflowers droop, But the fact is, exactly something different happens. They don't droop. You know what they do? They start facing each other. Rather than facing the ground, rather than drooping, they actually start facing each other. They derive energy from each other. Can you imagine? Sunflowers. I mean, usually the way we look at nature is we always feel nature is very inanimate, and it's not really something that we can learn human dealings from. Look at flowers. When there is no sun, so when there is no sun, when it's a cloudy day, what does it mean? When you face problems in life, when you face challenges in life, when you face difficulties in life. So when the sun is visible, there is a lot to look up to. But when the sun is not visible, that's when you need each other. That's when you derive inspiration from one another. Here, the Daityas, for the first time in their life, they were hearing about the idea of understanding one another, the idea of learning from one another, the idea of empathy, the idea of showing compassion to one another, the idea of trying to help one another. They have never learned this knowledge in their life. One day, as the class was going on, while the lecture was going on, suddenly they hear a voice. And the voice says, "Stop this cheater." And they turn behind and they see something very interesting. There's another Shukracharya standing over there. There's one Shukracharya sitting and giving them lecture. There's another Shukracharya standing at the back of them, telling them to stop the lecture. Now they are totally bewildered. Now the question is, who is real Shukracharya? Series of lectures have been going on for months now, For many, many months, this person has been giving them so much gyan. And suddenly one more person comes over here and he says, "This fellow is a cheater, I am your real guru." So now these people are completely confused, the Daityas. They're looking at each other, they're looking at the two gurus, both look exactly the same, duplicate, ditto. Now the question is, who is real? They look at the person who's sitting in front of them, giving them the lecture. They say, "Oh, last 2 months I have been giving so much knowledge to you all. I am the real guru. Please understand. Why would I share so much knowledge if I am not your guru?" They say, "Varavar hai." This is also right, This Shukracharya says, "Arey, have I ever given lecture to you? You are attending lecture over here. He is not your guru. If I was there, I would have never given lecture to you." The Daityas are totally confused now. Who is real guru? Then they think, this person has given us so much knowledge. He must be our real guru, And we have learned so much from him. So they told this fellow, "Get out, get lost from here, And this Shukracharya who was there, he was the original one. He curses them. He said, "You fool, you can't even recognize who's your guru. I curse you that you lose everything you have." And he walks away. Now these people are bewildered, They're just hoping they made the right choice. When they turned there, they saw on that seat where Shukracharya was sitting, Brahaspati was sitting. He changed his form to look like Shukracharya. And so they said, "Oh my God, they made the biggest mistake of their life. They first of all rejected their original guru, got cursed by him also. And this person is not even their guru." He walked away smiling, Tata, bye-bye, he said and walked away, Now the Daityas are in big trouble. And they have no idea how they're going to solve this dilemma. And then they use the idea the Shukracharya only gave them. They keep Prahlad in the front and take him to Shukracharya. And seeing Prahlad, Shukracharya's heart melts a little bit. And then all the Daityas say, "Please, sorry, we made a big mistake. Please come back, be our guru." Shukracharya finally, he understands these people are fools, what to do. I only made them like this, I didn't give them proper knowledge. So he can't blame them also. So he has to accept them, So he says, "Fine, let's see what we can do." So he says, now time is not right. The heavens, these people are very powerful. So when the time comes right, we will do everything. So here, a lot of people in life are like these Daityas. Most people, what they really need is encouragement. Everybody has good potential in them. But what they really need is somebody who can find that potential and fan that potential. So there was one man who had a son who was a total fool. And this man was convinced that this son, nothing can happen to him. Nobody in the world can help him. Nobody can change him. Total fool. He gave up on him completely. But his wife never gave up on that boy. Mothers are compassionate. Mothers have more hope on their children than fathers, usually. So his wife kept trying, to encourage the child, kept trying so much, kept supporting him all the time. Finally, there was a point of time when the wife went to the husband and she told him that our son has grown up. Now it's time to get him married. The husband said, "Have you gone mad? I don't want to spoil somebody's life by getting married to this fellow, you know. He said, impossible, forget it. I don't want to spoil somebody's life. The wife said, no. Before I die, I want to play with my grandchildren and this and that. The husband said, nothing doing. I can't do this to any girl. You know, the wife said, no, our boy has grown up now. He's become mature. The husband said, I will ask him one question. If he can answer that one question successfully, then I'll get him married immediately. Wife said, okay, fine. So the husband says, tell your son. So she, he gives the wife a coin. So he says, take this 1 paise coin, tell the boy to go to the market and buy one thing. And that one thing that he buys with this 1 paise should be something to drink, something to eat, something to drink, something to chew on, something to be planted in the garden, and something to feed the cows. Now, the wife, she told the son, you go and buy something that you can eat, you can chew, you can drink, you can plant, and you can feed the cows. The boy went, he was thinking, he just couldn't understand only what he was talking about. He kept thinking, nothing struck him. He was sitting very sadly, near the field. Then while he was sitting there on the banks of a river, there was a girl who was passing by. She was a daughter of a farmer. And she saw this boy was sitting so, sad and, dejected. She went to him and asked him, what happened? Why are you so sad? So he said, my father wants me to buy something with this 1 paise that you can eat and you can drink, you can chew and you can plant and you can give the cows. The girl said, simple. She said, go and buy a watermelon. This boy suddenly realized, oh yes, that's the answer. He went and bought a watermelon and went to his father. The father, when he saw the watermelon, he said, wow, this guy really has brains. To buy a thing that you can eat, you can drink, you can chew, you can plant, you can plant in the garden, and you can feed the cows, He said, this can't be your brains. Tell me whose brain it is, And then the boy told him honestly, this girl helped me, And then eventually the father realized that, yes, he may not have the intelligence, but if there is somebody who can encourage him and show him the right direction, even he can do something useful. Eventually that girl liked this boy and the boy liked this girl and they got married and they stayed together. The idea is, everyone needs a little encouragement. The bad can become good with a little encouragement. The good can become better with a little encouragement. And the better can become the best with a little encouragement. Encouragement is a catalyst for self-growth. Encouragement is simply shows any person that we have faith in you. So essentially here, why did the Daityas choose Shukracharya, choose Brihaspati as their guru instead of Shukracharya? Because he was the only person who showed them some encouragement. And naturally, because he showed them some encouragement, they were inclined to believe that he was their guru, basically. And not just encouragement. Brihaspati actually managed to bring out some good from them in that little while that he was there with them. Now, Shukracharya realized that this is too much. I need to do something very different to be able to get the Daityas to power again. He went and he acquired a very powerful mantra known as Mrita Sanjeevani mantra. Mrita Sanjeevani mantra was the most powerful mantra in the world, where you can revive a dead person back to life. So now, after he got the Mrita Sanjeevani mantra, the Daityas went and attacked the Devatas. Massive fights, one after another attacks. The Devatas are thinking, what the hell is going on? How these people are attacking us? And suddenly, many of the Devatas had a very interesting observation. They observed that the previous war, they killed somebody, that person has come back next war again. They said, "Arey, isko to mara tha maine. Wapas kaise aa gaya? Wapas mara." Next war he comes back again. They said, something is seriously wrong here. Because every person we kill, he's coming back again, So that's when they realized that Shukracharya actually has the Mrita Sanjeevani mantra. And then the Devatas realized, with Shukracharya having Mrita Sanjeevani mantra, there is absolutely no chance for us to win. and they decided to do something very different as a way to gain their Mrita Sanjeevani mantra. What they did was, they sent a boy named Kacha to Shukracharya's Gurukul. Kacha was a son of Brahaspati. They sent Kacha with a very important instruction. They told him, the only reason you are going there is to bring back the Mrita Sanjeevani mantra. Vas. Do whatever you want to do there. Spend how much ever time you want to spend there. Get the mantra. Vas. That's the only instruction that was given to Kacha. And he was sent. The Kacha was a very innocent boy, very sweet boy, and a very beautiful person by heart. So when Kacha reached Shukracharya's Gurukul, the moment Shukracharya looked at Kacha, he really liked him. He realized this boy is special. All the other Daityas over there, they told Shukracharya, "Arey, iske baap ne humko ullu banaya, koi bacche ko bheja hai. Don't take a chance. Don't take a risk." Shukracharya just didn't listen to anybody. He just naturally liked Kacha. He said, "I want this boy to be my disciple. Let him stay." So Kacha started staying with Shukracharya as his disciple. And over a period of time, Kacha, nothing in his actions ever indicated that he had any wrong motive, basically. Nothing made Shukracharya doubt him at all. Kacha was one of the best disciples Shukracharya had. He loved him. He would do everything for Shukracharya enthusiastically, so much he would serve him. So Shukracharya began to really connect with Kacha much beyond his imagination. He never thought that he would ever connect with a son of Brahaspati, so much intensely. But the Daityas, they knew that this boy is up to some trouble. They kept a watch on him. Constantly they kept him monitored, Though they tried to warn their guru many times, the guru just didn't bother. So they decided one day they only have to take action. One day, Kacha went with the cattle to the forest to graze. And while Kacha was away with the cattle in the forest, these demons, they kept following him from a distance. Suddenly they saw Kacha doing something suspicious. They saw Kacha release a pigeon. Excuse. They saw Kacha release a pigeon with a message. Immediately they knew Kacha is a spy. All of them jumped on him, killed him then and there, chopped him to pieces, threw his body here and there, went away. Now, in Shukracharya's hermitage, there was a whole discussion going on. Where is Kacha? The problem in having a facade, when you show a different face to people, is that people tend to take you too seriously on one side, but people tend to have a lot of doubts on the other side. You can't hide your facade for too long. There's only a certain amount of time till which you can hide. But beyond a certain point, you have to be yourself, and people will come to know who you really are. Now, while Shukracharya was searching for Kacha, there was one person who was the loudest in expressing dissatisfaction Kacha is missing. And Shukracharya was surprised to see who was the loudest. The loudest was his own daughter, Devyani. Because she loved Kacha so intensely. And Shukracharya had no idea that, this Devyani and Kacha were in love. And they were so intensely connected with one another. Devyani started telling her father, nothing doing, I want Kacha. Shukracharya was bewildered. He said, I also want Kacha, but not like this, She's like, so now he had no option, he had to go and find. So Devyani and Shukracharya went all over into the forest and they found Kacha's body, one hand over there, one leg over there, all parts thrown here and there. Shukracharya, now he knew he had no option, chanted the Mrita Sanjeevani mantra, and all the pieces assembled together, zoop, and then Kacha came back to life. And Devyani was so happy, Kacha has come back. She went and embraced him, and they were like so happily united again. So Shukracharya, went and told his disciples, warned them, never ever do this to Kacha again, The disciples are bewildered. Kacha has come back to life. What if he tells who has done it, So Shukracharya kept asking Kacha, have you seen who did it to you? Kacha didn't even see because they attacked him from behind. They killed him before he could understand. And Kacha had no idea. So then, a few days passed. In the meanwhile, one day, Devyani sent Kacha to the forest to fetch some flowers for her. So now, when the Daityas saw Kacha going alone into the forest, they followed him. Again jumped on him, attacked him, killed him, slaughtered him like anything. This time they didn't leave the body parts here and there. They burnt his body. And they took all the ashes of the burnt body, put it in a bottle, brought it back to the ashram. They mixed it with water and all kinds of liquids. They made a health drink out of it. They went and gave their guru. It's a very nice health drink for you, Please drink it. Shukracharya had no idea what, nobody has any idea what is there in the health drink, right? Nowadays. So Shukracharya also had no idea what is there in the health drink. He mixed it, he drank it, health drink. Again, everybody started searching, where is Kacha? Devyani started shouting, I want Kacha, I want Kacha. They went all over the forest. They could not find Kacha's body anywhere. They could not find anything anywhere. Then the question was, where is Kacha? And while this confusion was happening, Shukracharya realized, now I should meditate and see where Kacha is. He closed his eyes using his yogic powers, meditated intensely, and he realized Kacha's inside him, inside his tummy. Shukracharya wondering, what the hell? How is Kacha inside my stomach? And that's when he realized that his disciples, his own disciples, fed him, Kacha's ashes. You can imagine what people can do to get their work done. His own guru, they fed him, So, in the pursuit of self-preservation, human beings are ready to kill valuable relationships. One time, there was a Brahmana and his wife, and their only son died. And, this, elderly couple, their young son died. They were childless for a long, long time. Finally, they had a child. And this only son also died. So they were, crying so much. They were crying in the crematorium, basically, before the cremation was going to happen. And while the parents were crying so loudly, there was a vulture who heard the crying of the parents. The vulture, he realized that what is happening, So he came over there and started speaking to the parents. What the vulture wanted was very clear. He wanted the parents to go away so that he can eat the flesh. So he started telling the parents, this world is full of misery. Anybody who's born will die one day. Birth and death go hand in hand. You yourself will leave your body one day when your time is over. How can you stop death? It's impossible, Time is like the king. Friend, foe, children, parents, everyone has to die. He says, go home and pray for the departed soul. When the parents heard this, they felt nice. They felt a little better because he's giving some words of hope. So they got up and they were walking away. While they were walking away, a jackal came over there. The jackal said, hey, why do you go so early? You're leaving your child over there like this. You don't love him? He says, don't you believe in the miracles of God? If you stay here and shower your love on this child, surely the child will come back to life. The jackal, the only reason he said this is because he didn't want them to go, because the vulture is standing over there. So the vulture will get to eat that flesh, So the jackal wanted to eat, but the jackal can't eat till the vulture goes. And the vulture goes in the evening. So he thought, if the parents stay till evening, and then they go, he will get to eat. The vulture, he saw the jackal. He started counseling. He said, this jackal is speaking nonsense. He has no knowledge. His advice is just ignorance. He said, the body is just made up of 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, ether. Everything goes back to the elements. The body is dead. It's dead matter only. And he says, what is the use of mourning for somebody who has gone already? Let the dead rest in peace. The parents heard the vulture. They said, that also makes sense. So they were standing up to go. And the jackal said, no, don't go. Don't you know? Effort and destiny work together. Unless you put effort, don't expect grace to come. And he said, sit and show your efforts over here. And the parents sat back again. The vulture said, I have never seen a dead body come back alive. Have you ever seen any dead body come back alive? Tell me at least one example. The jackal started telling example after example, one by one. I've been sitting in this crematorium. I saw so many children come back to life. So the parents are completely confused what's happening. The jackal is saying one thing, vulture is saying another thing. The child is dead over there. While this whole commotion is going on, Lord Shiva and Parvati happened to be passing by. And they saw all this commotion and they saw the parents crying and all. Parvati felt compassionate on that child. She brought back the child to life. And both the vulture and the jackal were so miserable, because neither the jackal was a well-wisher, nor the vulture was a well-wisher. A lot of times when people do anything good for us, they're not doing it for us. They're doing it for themselves. A lot of time, goodness is simply selfishness. So when somebody does something overly good for you, remember, there's something in it for them, basically. So here, in this whole episode of, the Daityas slaughtering, Kacha, mixing his, ashes and giving it to their guru. Can you imagine? This is purely self-preservation in action. This is purely the reason because they were worried that if Kacha is alive, they are dead. So because they were worried about themselves, they didn't bother about what they are doing with their guru. They were ready to go to any extent, to make them stay alive. Now Shukracharya had a problem. The problem was his daughter wanted Kacha. And the problem was, if he does the Mrita Sanjeevani mantra, Kacha will come back to life, but he will die in the process. Because for Kacha to come out, he has to blast from his stomach and come out, right? So Shukracharya was thinking, what is more important? Should I give my life or should I, help my daughter? So he told his daughter, whom do you want? You want Kacha or you want me? Devayani said, I want both. Now Shukracharya is wondering, how will both be alive simultaneously? Then finally Shukracharya realized there is only one way both can be alive. Shukracharya closed his eyes, intensely started communicating with the soul of Kacha within his own body. He started telling Kacha, I have great faith in you. I'm going to do something now that probably I would have never done if it was anybody else. But because it's you and I have full faith in you, I believe that you won't take disadvantage of me, and you won't let me down. And I'm doing this for you. So he closed his eyes and, he chanted the Mrita Sanjeevani mantra. So he said, I will chant the Mrita Sanjeevani mantra once to revive you. And after you are revived, you chant the Mrita Sanjeevani mantra another time to revive me. So Shukracharya taught the Mrita Sanjeevani mantra to Kacha first. Kacha heard the Mrita Sanjeevani mantra while Shukracharya was reciting it. And as soon as Shukracharya finished reciting the Mrita Sanjeevani mantra, there was a big blast. And all the wall of that house, there was the blood and all kinds of things, gore of Shukracharya splashed all over the wall of that the room. And suddenly, in the midst of all that blood, everything started assimilating together, and Kacha was standing over there. Devayani was so happy. Kacha is born again. She was so excited. And Kacha, he chanted Mrita Sanjeevani mantra now, which he learned from Shukracharya. And then Shukracharya came back to life. Shukracharya was so grateful to Kacha because Kacha could have easily walked home, right? I mean, it's logical. He is the son, enemy is son. He is his Brahaspati is the greatest enemy of Shukracharya. He could have just walked back home. Who would have done anything? The Daityas couldn't do anything to him because he has the Mutasandhini Mantra. If they kill him again, he can again be born, So there's nothing for him to worry about now. But because Kacha actually showed that honesty, Kacha actually showed the integrity of reviving his guru, showing his gratitude to his guru, Shukracharya was so grateful. He embraced Kacha. And after he embraced Kacha, Devyani came running towards Kacha. The moment Devyani came running towards him, Kacha stepped back. So Devyani was surprised. So why did he step back? Kacha, he told her, now we both are born from the same father. Kacha is also born from Shukracharya's body now, right? So he said, now our relationship is different. I can't think of you in the same way as I thought before. Now I'm different and you are supposed to be, born from the same father. He stepped back. When Shukracharya saw that, he saw the culture of Kacha, he saw the sensitivity of Kacha, he saw the integrity of Kacha. He was really impressed. He said, this person is really a person of integrity. Here, Kacha teaches us a very important principle in life. A lot of relationships in life, a lot of events in life make us change our roles. When roles change, when situations change, it's important to learn to let go. There are some people who, when situations change also, they don't let go. And that causes the greatest problems of life. The Mahabharata talks about 3 people who learned to let go. And the Mahabharata talks about 3 people who didn't learn to let go. The 3 people who learned to let go grew in their life. And the 3 people who didn't learn to let go, they actually suffered so much in their life. The first person who didn't learn to let go was Bhishma. So in the Mahabharata we find Bhishma, he was attached to principles. What principle he was attached to? The principle that I have taken a vow that I will never marry, I will never sit on the throne. Stuck to that principle till the end of his life. Dronacharya, Dhritarashtra, the other person, he sought his security in position. So as long as I'm sitting on the throne, everything will be fine. So he felt that the throne is everything. He was so attached to that throne, not ready to let go on any condition. And he said, after me, my son only has to sit on the throne. So no matter what, not ready to let go. And the third person was Dronacharya himself, was attached to his son, Ashwathama. Son was doing all the wrong things, but still Dronacharya attached. So one was attached to position, one was attached to principle, and one was attached to relationship. The same Mahabharata contains 3 other people who learned to let go at the right time in life. First is Yudhishthira. Yudhishthira had a lifelong principle of speaking the truth, always. Dharma, always speaking the truth. But when it came to the right time in the Mahabharata, when Krishna told him, let go of that principle, Yudhishthira let go. That's his greatness. The greatness of Yudhishthira is not that he did so many other things. The greatness of Yudhishthira is that when Krishna told him to let go, he actually let go of the most important principle of his life. That's his greatness. Otherwise, he could have said, I won't lie, no matter what happens. You say, or anybody else says, I won't lie. No, he just let go. And then the second person in the Mahabharata who learned to let go was Parikshit Maharaj. When he was cursed to die in 7 days and 7 nights, the moment he heard the curse, instantly he let go of the position. The same throne that Dhritarashtra was stuck with all his life, the same throne that Dhritarashtra was stuck, not only his life, his son's life also he wanted to rule through his son. Parikshit let go in one moment. The same position, the same throne. He was cursed, Parikshit walked out of the palace that second. And the third person was Janmajay. Janmajay, he let go of his attachment to his position, to his opinion. So when his father Parikshit was bit by this Takshak, a snake bird, so Janmajay had taken a vow to destroy all the snakes in the world. He performed a massive sacrifice where all the snakes in the world were being dragged into the fire. And while thousands of these snakes were dying into the fire, the sages told Janmajaya, this is not right. For one person's mistake, why are you destroying so many people's lives? The sages told him, just let go. The moment the sages told Janmajaya this, just let go. What the great Bhishma, Drona and Dhritarashtra couldn't do, these young people did it. Sometimes to let go, you need a little bit of flexibility. So your Kacha was intensely connected with Devyayani, but now the situation changed. Just let go. Kacha came with the idea here of being a part of the Devatas. But when he realized that his guru needs him, and he is grateful to his guru for what he has learned, he let go of that attachment to his people also. Now, Kacha returned to the Devatas, armed with the Mrita Sanjeevani mantra, the mantra that Devatas have been waiting for desperately. So in one sense, mission accomplished. Kacha did what he went for. He got the Mrita Sanjeevani mantra. But when he returned with a very important realization in his life. He returned with a realization that really completely changed his way of looking at life, the way of thinking. He realized, so he had stayed with the Daityas for a long period of time. He had stayed with Shukracharya for a long period of time. From the heavens, these people appeared to be demons. But from close quarters, when he was staying actually with Shukracharya, he realized he's no different from my father Brihaspati. He's exactly like my father. And he realized both the Daityas and the Devatas, there's no difference between the two. Apparently they seem to be different people. Apparently one seems to be good and one seems to be bad. But what Kacha realized is the essence of today's session. He realized that there are two people, Devatas and Daityas. He was born to the Devatas. That means he has seen the whole family of the Devatas. He grew up with them. His father is a Devata. But he lived with the Daityas. His guru, Shukracharya, is a Daitya. He lived with all his friends. Devyayani is a Daitya. Apparently, Daityas seemed to be evil and Devatas seemed to be good. But he realized both of them are essentially seeking out the same thing. What are they both seeking out? Both are looking for happiness. Daityas are looking for happiness. Devatas are looking for happiness. Demons are looking for happiness. Demigods are looking for happiness. The Daityas look for happiness through the medium of Papa. The Devatas look for happiness through the medium of Punya. So what Devatas do to get happiness? They do a lot of pious activities. As a result of those pious activities, they get a lot of opportunities to enjoy heavenly pleasures. The Daityas, they don't have the patience to do so much piety and all that. They have a very simple way of finding happiness. Whatever Devatas get, they go and attack them and take it from them. Simple. I mean, either this way or that way. Essence is enjoy, right? So Devatas do the hard work of doing so much tapasya and getting Amrit. Daityas go attack them, rob the Amrit. Simple. So either ways, what both of them are looking for is very important. For Daityas, happiness can be snatched. For the Devatas, happiness has to be earned. For the Devatas, happiness comes by merit. And for the Daityas, happiness comes by power. Ultimately, what both are looking for is happiness. Kacha had a very important realization. He realized Devatas are trying for happiness, Daityas are trying for happiness, but both are miserable. But both are equally miserable. Look at the amount of energy that they're putting in to just be happy. Just look at the amount of energy they're putting in, trying to beat up each other, trying to sabotage each other, trying to cheat each other, trying so many tricks. Finally, for what? Happiness. Kacha, he realized what is the real Mrita Sanjeevani mantra that he actually learned. The Mrita Sanjeevani mantra that he learned was not the one that Shukracharya taught him. The Mrita Sanjeevani mantra that he learned is, Instead of looking for happiness in life, one should start looking for satisfaction in life. If only the Devatas and Daityas, instead of looking for happiness, if they start looking for satisfaction, both of them have enough reasons to be satisfied in life. Both of them have enough and much more than needed to be satisfied in life. From Kachcha's point of view, the Mrita Sanjeevani mantra that he got was not important at all. But this realization that he got, that neither the Devatas are good nor the Daityas are bad. Neither the Devatas are bad nor the Daityas are good. Both of them are simply looking for the wrong thing in life. Both of them are looking for happiness. Rather than looking for happiness, they should be looking for satisfaction. And that satisfaction is got when you actually look for something higher. Happiness is attained by looking for things, external things that satisfy your senses. But satisfaction is in looking for something higher, principles of life. Kachcha, he lived with the Daityas, but he realized there is absolutely no difference between them and his people. Everyone is exactly the same. And that realization helped him get the Mrita Sanjeevani mantra that he was actually looking for. So the Mrita Sanjeevani mantra is, rather than look for happiness in life, start looking for satisfaction in life. You will be much more happier and much more peaceful. Hare Krishna.